Captured by the enemy. Princess Zyra sat in the cold, dark cell, her wrists bound by metal cuffs. The air smelled of steel and smoke, and the hum of the spaceship's engines vibrated beneath her feet. She had been captured by humans. Her heart pounded as she thought about the terrible things they would do to her. The Crevarian Empire had always warned her about humans. They were cruel, savage creatures. They took pleasure in pain. They would torture her until she begged for death. Zyra lifted her head, her silver eyes glowing in the dim light. She would not break. She was a Crevarian princess, a warrior. If the humans wanted her fear, they would get nothing but silence. The door hissed open. A man stepped inside. He was tall, wearing a dark uniform with silver badges on his chest. His face was strong, his jaw sharp, and his blue eyes locked onto hers. He did not look like a monster, but Zyra knew better. Humans were good at pretending. The man did not speak right away. He held a small tray in his hands. On it there was a bowl of food and a cup of water. He placed it on the floor and stepped back. "Eat," he said. His voice was calm, steady. Zyra narrowed her eyes. "Poison," she spat. The man sighed. "If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have brought food." She glared at him, refusing to touch it. She would rather starve than fall for a human's tricks. The man studied her for a moment, then crouched down to her level. "I know what you think of us," he said, "that we're monsters. But I don't hurt prisoners. My name is Commander Ethan Carter. What's yours?" Zyra said nothing. She would not give him the pleasure of knowing her name. Ethan shook his head. "Suit yourself," he said. He stood up and walked to the door. Before leaving, he glanced at her once more. "The food's not poisoned. If you want to starve, that's your choice." The door slid shut behind him. Zyra clenched her fists. This was a new kind of game. Humans were deceptive. Maybe they wanted to make her weak before the real torture began. Maybe they wanted her to trust them before they broke her. She stared at the food for a long time. Her stomach growled, but she refused to eat. She would not break. Hours passed, maybe even a full day. There were no windows, no way to tell time. The ship remained silent, except for the occasional distant voices of humans passing by her cell. The door opened again. Ethan returned, carrying another tray. The first one remained untouched. "You're stubborn," he said, setting the new food down. This time, he also had a small medical kit. "You're injured. Let me treat your wounds." Zyra flinched as he took a step closer. This was it. The real torture was beginning. She braced herself for pain, for cruelty, for the monster to reveal itself. But Ethan did something strange. He knelt beside her, carefully reaching for her wrist. His touch was warm, gentle. He pulled out a small device and pressed it against her skin. A cool sensation spread over her wounds. Healing gel. Zyra stiffened. Why would a human heal her? "You were hit pretty bad during the battle," Ethan said as he worked. "You should have been treated sooner." Zyra's heart pounded. No human would do this. This was a trick. It had to be. She yanked her hand away, staring at him. "What do you want from me?" she demanded. Ethan sighed again, as if he was tired of this game too. "Nothing," he said. "I just don't enjoy watching people suffer." Lies. Zyra had been taught since childhood that humans loved watching their enemies in pain. They were killers, destroyers. But this man, he was different. Or maybe he was just a better liar. Ethan stood up. "You don't have to trust me," he said. "But you should eat." He left again. Zyra stared at the food, at the place where Ethan had touched her wrist. It didn't hurt anymore. A human had healed her. She didn't know what was worse, the pain she expected or the kindness she never thought possible. And that terrified her. The mysterious kindness. Princess Zyra had not moved from her position in the cold cell. The food still sat untouched, though the scent of it had long since tempted her. Her Crevarian pride kept her still, but her mind was restless. The human, Commander Ethan Carter, was playing a different kind of game. No violence, no threats, just kindness. It made no sense. Her people had spoken of humans as monsters, yet this one had healed her. He had given her food, offered her a name instead of a demand. It was a trap. It had to be. The door slid open again, the same quiet hiss of metal and air. Fadira's glowing silver eyes snapped up. Ethan entered alone. No guards, no weapons in his hands. Just him. "You didn't eat," he observed. He stepped closer and knelt down beside the tray. "I figured you might not trust it." So, to her shock, Ethan took the bowl of food, scooped up a bite, and ate it. Zira narrowed her eyes. "What are you doing?" "Showing you it's not poisoned," Ethan replied, chewing slowly. He swallowed, then took another bite. "See, I'm still alive." Sarah watched him carefully. Humans were deceivers, but this was a bold move. "You expect me to believe this isn't some trick," she said coldly. Ethan shrugged. "I expect you to make your own choices. Whether you eat or not is up to you." Zyra's stomach twisted painfully. She hated how weak her body felt, how hunger gnawed at her strength. Still, she didn't move. Ethan exhaled through his nose. "You're really stubborn. And you are a fool if you think I will trust you," she shot back. A smirk tugged at the corner of Ethan's lips. Fair enough. He leaned back, studying her with those two human eyes. They held no cruelty, no amusement at her suffering. Just something she couldn't quite understand. "Why am I still alive?" she demanded suddenly. Ethan tilted his head. "You think I should have killed you." "My people would have," she said without hesitation. "You are an enemy. The Crevarian Empire does not show mercy." Ethan's expression darkened slightly. "Yeah, I know." Zyra felt a strange pull in her chest. His tone, he wasn't just speaking facts. He had experienced it. "You've lost people," she guessed. Ethan's jaw tightened. "I've lost entire colonies." A beat of silence passed between them. Zyra felt something unfamiliar stir inside her. It wasn't guilt, but something close to it. Humans had suffered too. She had always imagined them as the hunters, the aggressors. But what if that was a lie? "You think we are the monsters," Ethan continued, voice quieter now. "But have you ever questioned what your empire has done?" Zyra's fingers curled into fists. "We are warriors. We bring order to the galaxy." Ethan let out a dry, humorless laugh. "That's what every conqueror says." She hated how his words unsettled her, how they forced cracks into the certainty she had held her entire life. He stood up. "Eat or don't," he said. "I won't force you." Then he turned and left. The door sealed shut once more. Zyra stared at the tray. Her people would call her weak for even considering it. But Ethan had eaten from the same bowl. If it was a trick, it was a clever one. Her body ached with hunger. She made her choice. Zyra picked up the spoon. And for the first time in her life, she ate food given by a human. Hours later, a different kind of prison. Ethan stood in the command center of the ship, staring at the glowing holomap of space. Around him, his officers worked in silence, glancing at him from time to time. They all knew what he was doing, keeping the enemy alive. "You think she's going to talk?" one of his officers, Lieutenant Reyes, asked. Ethan didn't look away from the map. Maybe. Maybe not. "She's dangerous," Reyes pressed. "She's a Crevarian princess, Ethan. A warrior. If she gets free." "I know who she is," Ethan interrupted. "I also know she's not the enemy we should be worrying about right now." Reyes hesitated, then sighed. "You're too soft." Ethan turned to face her, his blue eyes sharp. "Would you rather we torture her? Starve her? Beat her into submission?" Reyes crossed her arms. "It's what they do to our people." Ethan exhaled slowly. "That's exactly why we can't do the same." Reyes said nothing. The room was silent for a long time. Ethan looked back at the map. The Crevarian fleet was moving. The war wasn't over, not by a long shot, and he had just given their princess a reason to question everything. He could only hope it would be enough. Meanwhile, in the cell, Syra sat in the dim light, feeling the warmth of food in her stomach for the first time in days. It was strange. She expected to feel shame, but instead, she felt something else, something dangerous. A thought whispered at the edges of her mind, one she desperately wanted to ignore. What if humans weren't the monsters? What if her people were? Secrets of the war. Syra sat in the dimly lit cell, her back pressed against the cold metal wall. The warmth of the food she had eaten earlier lingered in her stomach, but her mind was in turmoil. She had spent her life believing that humans were monsters, cruel, violent creatures who took pleasure in suffering. Yet Commander Ethan Carter had done none of the things she had expected. He had healed her wounds instead of causing more. He had fed her instead of starving her. He had spoken to her like an equal, not a prisoner. It was a trick. It had to be. But why? She exhaled sharply, trying to clear her thoughts. Emotions were dangerous. She had been trained to ignore them, to act only on duty, logic, and survival. And yet here she was, feeling something close to doubt. A sudden vibration ran through the ship's walls. A distant alarm blared, muffled by layers of steel. Something was wrong. The door to her cell hissed open. Ethan entered, but this time his expression was grim. No small talk, no games. Your people are coming. Zyra's eyes narrowed. To rescue me. Ethan scoffed. No, to silence you. She stiffened. That's a lie. Is it? Ethan stepped closer, his blue eyes sharp. They're not sending diplomats or negotiators. They're sending warships to destroy this entire station. Her heart pounded. That didn't make sense. The Crevarian Empire valued control. They never wasted resources when a simple retrieval mission would work. Unless they thought she was a liability. Zyra swallowed hard, refusing to let fear show on her face. Why would they do that? Ethan folded his arms. Because you know something they don't want you to figure out. She frowned. And what is that, human? Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out a small holographic projector. He tossed it onto the metal floor between them. The device flickered to life, casting a glowing image in the air. Zyra's breath caught. It was a Crevarian fleet hovering over a human colony. But the colony wasn't a military base. It wasn't even a threat. It was a civilian planet, a home to families, children, non-combatants. And then, the worst part. The Crevarian ships opened fire. Flashes of plasma cannons rained down, tearing through cities, leveling entire regions in seconds. People ran, screamed, died. Zyra's hands clenched into fists. She couldn't breathe. This is a lie, she whispered, though even she didn't believe it. Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. This is your empire, princess. This is what they do. No, she shook her head. We fight wars. We conquer for the survival of our species. We don't. She stopped, because the images didn't lie. She had been raised in war, but she had never questioned where it was fought. She had never questioned why. Her throat tightened. How do I know this is real? Ethan knelt, picking up the holo-projector. He met her gaze. Because I was there. The weight of his words hit harder than she expected. Zyra looked at the projection again. Her people had told her that humans were the invaders, that they were violent and merciless. But this was a massacre. And her empire had done it. A new alarm blared through the ship, louder this time. Ethan stood up. Your fleet will be here soon, he said. We don't have much time. Zyra looked up at him. So what now? You kill me before they arrive. Ethan actually laughed. It was short and dry, but real. If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have healed you. Zyra exhaled sharply. He was right. What do you want from me? She asked. Ethan's gaze was unreadable. The truth. The battle begins. The ship rumbled beneath them as the first impact shook the station. The Crevarian fleet had arrived. Ethan moved fast, tapping his comm. "Rise, report." A female voice crackled through. "Shields are up, but they've got us surrounded. They're demanding we hand over the traitor." Zyra flinched at the word. Traitor. That's what she was now, wasn't she? Ethan turned to her. "You have two choices, Princess. Stay in this cell and wait for them to destroy us, or fight with us." Zyra's mind spun. Could she really turn against her own people? Could she really fight beside a human? But then she thought of the holo projection. The truth. Her people had already decided to kill her. They had left her no choice. She stood up, her silver eyes flashing with something new. "Give me a weapon." Ethan smirked. "I thought you'd never ask." He tossed her a pulse pistol. She caught it with ease. The ship shook again, harder this time. Ethan turned, motioning for her to follow. "Let's move." Zyra took one last deep breath. She had spent her life believing humans were the enemy. Now she was about to fight for them. And for the first time, she wasn't sure who the real enemy was anymore. The escape plan. The station trembled under the relentless assault of Cragarian warships. The floor beneath Zyra's feet vibrated with each impact, and the distant alarms howled through the corridors. The air smelled of scorched metal, electrical fires, and something far worse, desperation. Zyra followed Commander Ethan Carter through the winding passages of the station, her pulse pistol firm in her grip. She was now fighting for the same species she had once called monsters, and her people, the Crevarian Empire, had just declared her a traitor. She clenched her jaw, pushing away the conflict in her mind. Now wasn't the time for doubt. Now was the time to survive. Ethan glanced back at her. "You still good, Princess?" Zyra scowled. "I am not a fragile human, Carter." He smirked, glad to hear it, because things are about to get worse. They rounded a corner, and suddenly, the hallway exploded. The force sent Zyra tumbling backward, her ears ringing. Smoke filled the corridor as sparks rained from the ceiling. She coughed, shaking the dizziness from her head. Through the thick haze, she saw them. Crevarian warriors, her people. They moved through the smoke like ghosts, tall, armored, weapons drawn. Their glowing crimson eyes locked onto her. "Sira Zithrak, you are under judgment. Surrender." It was General Vakros, one of the Empire's most feared commanders. He stepped forward, his blade humming with energy. His voice was like stone grinding against steel. "You disgrace our kind by standing beside these creatures." Zyra tightened her grip on her weapon. "They are not what we were told." Vakros sneered. "So the humans have poisoned your mind." Ethan stepped beside her, his own weapon raised. "Hey, buddy, she's got a mind of her own. Unlike you lot." Vakros barely spared him a glance. "You do not belong in this galaxy, human." Yeah, you guys keep saying that. And yet, here we are." Vakros' expression darkened. "Enough." He raised his weapon. The Crevarians behind him did the same. Zyra's instincts screamed. "Move," she shouted, grabbing Ethan's arm and diving for cover. The hallway erupted in gunfire, the fight for survival. Zyra and Ethan crouched behind a collapsed support beam, the air thick with plasma fire. "This is your plan," Zyra growled, pressing against the metal. "Getting us both killed." Ethan grinned, unfazed. "You're still alive, aren't you?" Before she could respond, Vakros charged. Zyra barely had time to react before he was on her, his blade slashing downward. She rolled away, the searing heat missing her by inches. She twisted, fired a quick shot. But Vakros was fast. He deflected the blast with his blade, the plasma dispersing into the air. Then he lunged again. Zyra blocked, the force of his attack sending her skidding backward. Vakros was stronger, more experienced. She had sparred against Cragarian warriors before, But this was different. This was real. She needed to change the game. With a sharp feint, she dropped low and kicked his leg out from under him. It worked. He stumbled, just for a second. But a second was all she needed. Zyra's pistol pressed against his chest. "Stand down," she commanded. Vakros bared his fangs. "You will regret this." She hesitated. Could she really pull the trigger? A gunshot rang out. Not from her. Zyra spun. Ethan had shot another Crevarian who would try to flank her. For a split second, she felt something strange. Trust. Ethan had covered her back, just like a true warrior. She turned back to Vakros, but he was gone. "Damn it," Ethan muttered. "He won't let this go." Zyra exhaled sharply. No, he won't. The escape plan. They didn't have time to fight the whole fleet. Zyra knew that. Ethan knew that. They needed a way out. "We're not holding this station," Ethan said, checking his ammo. "Your people will wipe us out if we don't leave now." Zyra's mind raced. She knew how Crevarian warships operated. "If we reach the docking bay," she said, "I can override the Crevarian transport systems. We can steal a ship." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You're good at stealing your own people's ships." She gave him a look. "I am a princess. I can fly anything." Ethan smirked. "Now that's a skill I can respect." The race to the docking bay. They ran. The station shook as explosions tore through the walls. The Crevarians were trying to destroy the whole place. They dodged falling debris, plasma fire lighting up the corridors. Zyra moved on instinct, her body fueled by adrenaline and survival. At last, they reached the docking bay. But they weren't alone. Vakros was already there, waiting. And he had brought an entire squadron. Ethan let out a low whistle. "They really don't want you leaving, huh?" Zyra narrowed her eyes. "It seems so." Vakros stepped forward, his blade crackling. "You have one last chance. Come with us. Face your judgment with honor." She did not hesitate. "No." Vakros sighed. "Then you die with them." He raised his hand. The soldiers opened fire. The final gamble. Zyra and Ethan dove for cover, plasma shots scorching the air. "There's no way we're fighting through that," Ethan shouted. Zyra's mind raced. She spotted a Crevarian cruiser docked at the far end of the bay. If they could get inside. "We don't have to fight," she said. "We just have to reach that ship." Ethan glanced at it, then back at her. "I hope you're as good a pilot as you say." Zyra grinned. "Better." Ethan pulled out a small detonator. "Then let's make a distraction." He threw it, and the explosion sent the Crevarians scattering. Zyra grabbed his arm. "Run." They sprinted across the platform, dodging incoming fire. Zyra's heart pounded. If she made it to that ship, everything would change. For better or worse. They jumped aboard. Zyra hacked the controls, fingers moving fast. The engines roared to life. Vakros charged at the ship, blade ready. But it was too late. The ship blasted out of the docking bay, escaping into the void. A new path. Zyra leaned back in the pilot's seat, breathing hard. Ethan let out a breath. "Well, that was fun." She glanced at him. "This changes everything." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, it does." Zyra's people would hunt her now. The Empire would brand her as a traitor. And yet, for the first time, she felt free. She had expected to be tortured by humans. Instead, one had just saved her life. And now she had a war to change. The battle for truth. The stolen Crevarian warship shot through the black void of space, leaving behind the wreckage of the human station. Explosions flickered in the distance, debris tumbling in the vacuum as the last remnants of the battle faded into silence. Princess Zyra sat in the pilot's chair, her hands gripping the controls. Her silver eyes reflected the glow of the star charts flickering across the dashboard. She had done the unthinkable. She had turned against her own people. She was now a traitor to the Crevarian Empire. Beside her, Commander Ethan Carter watched her carefully. His blue eyes were unreadable, but she could feel the tension between them. She had fought beside him. She had saved his life, and he had saved hers. But that didn't mean she trusted him. And it certainly didn't mean she trusted herself. The silence stretched between them until Ethan finally spoke. "Well," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I gotta say, that was one hell of a way to quit your job." Zyra turned her head slowly, fixing him with a glare. "I am not in the mood for human humor, Carter." He smirked. "That's a shame. I was just getting started." She exhaled sharply and looked away. "This is not a game. You do not understand what I have done." Ethan's expression grew more serious. "You helped a lot of innocent people today, Princess." Zyra flinched at the title. She was no longer a princess. She was a fugitive, a hunted outcast. "They will not stop hunting me," she murmured. Ethan's voice was quiet, but firm. "Then we make sure they never catch you." She turned to him, uncertainty flickering in her gaze. "You would risk your life for a Crevarian exile." Ethan met her eyes without hesitation. "You're not my enemy, Zyra. And I don't leave people behind." Something unfamiliar twisted in her chest, a strange warmth. She did not like it. The Empire strikes back. The ship's warning alarms blared. Zyra's hands snapped to the controls. "We are being tracked." Ethan cursed. "Damn, that was fast." Zyra's fingers danced over the holographic console. She recognized the signature of the incoming fleet, her father's fleet, the Crevarian High Command. "They'd brought a full armada," she whispered. Her heart pounded in her chest. "They are not just hunting me. They mean to erase this ship from existence." Ethan leaned forward, studying the readings. "How many ships?" Zyra swallowed hard. 15 battle cruisers. Ethan let out a slow breath. "All right. That's not ideal." Zyra shot him a glare. "Not ideal. This is a death sentence." Ethan tapped his fingers against the console, thinking fast. "We need a way out. How good are Crevarian ships at evasive maneuvers?" Zyra's mind raced. Their ship was fast, but not faster than an entire fleet. And then it hit her. "There is a nebula rift nearby," she said quickly. "A high-energy field with gravitational distortions. No Crevarian ship would risk flying through it." Ethan grinned. "Sounds perfect." Zyra hesitated. "You do not understand. The rift is highly unstable. If we miscalculate by even a fraction, we will be torn apart." Ethan leaned closer, his voice low. "Do you trust yourself to make the right calculations?" Zyra stared at him. No hesitation, no doubt. He trusted her, more than her own people ever had. She clenched her jaw. "Strap in, human. This will not be pleasant." Ethan chuckled. "Wouldn't be the first time." Zyra rolled her eyes and punched the thrusters forward. The ship lurched into hyperspeed, rocketing toward the violent nebula rift. Through the storm. The nebula rift was a swirling storm of purple and blue energy, crackling with violent gravitational pulses. As soon as they entered, the ship shook violently. Warning lights flashed across the dashboard. "This is insane," Ethan shouted, gripping his seat as the ship veered wildly. Zyra's hands were steady on the controls. "I told you." Outside, the Crevarian fleet hesitated. Her people feared the rift. They knew the risks. But they also knew failure was not an option. The flagship, the High Commander's vessel, sent a final transmission before launching an attack. "Zyra Zithrak, you are to be destroyed by order of the Empire. There is no escape. Surrender and face judgment." Zyra's breath hitched. She recognized that voice. Her father. Ethan saw the look on her face. "That's him, isn't it?" Zyra nodded stiffly. Her own father had just given the order to execute her. Ethan's gaze hardened. We're getting out of this. The Crevarian fleet opened fire. Zyra twisted the controls, dipping the ship into the heart of the rift. Energy crackled around them. The ship groaned under the pressure. Her fingers flew across the navigation system. One mistake, and they were dead. The gravitational fields pulled at them, threatening to tear the ship apart. Ethan watched her work, his voice steady despite the chaos. Come on, princess. Show me what you've got. Zyra's teeth clenched. Hold on. She entered the final calculation. The ship pitched violently, then shot forward. A blinding burst of energy engulfed them. For a split second, there was nothing. Then, silence. Zyra opened her eyes. The ship was intact. The alarms had gone quiet. Ethan let out a slow, disbelieving laugh. We made it. Zyra exhaled shakily. We made it. They had escaped the fleet. For now, the new war begins. Zyra slumped back in her seat, exhaustion crashing into her. The weight of everything finally settled onto her shoulders. She was alone now. Her people had abandoned her. Her father had given the kill order himself. She had no home, no allies. Except, she turned to Ethan. He was watching her, not as an enemy, not as a prisoner, but as a comrade. She had expected torture from humans. Instead, one had saved her life. Ethan leaned forward, his expression serious. What now? Zyra took a deep breath. And then she answered. We fight back. More than an ally. The stolen Crevarian warship floated in the silence of space, far beyond the reach of the fleet that had tried to destroy it. The violent nebula rift crackled in the distance, a graveyard of wrecked ships that had dared to enter. They had survived. But Zyra's war had only just begun. She stood at the ship's control panel, scanning the long-range sensors. No sign of pursuit, yet, but it was only a matter of time before the Crevarian Empire hunted her down again. She was a traitor now, a fugitive. Her own people had tried to erase her from existence. She should have felt nothing but anger. And yet, she felt something else, a strange, unfamiliar pull deep in her chest. Her gaze flickered to Commander Ethan Carter. He was sitting across from her, checking his weapons, his blue eyes sharp with thought. He had risked everything to keep her alive. A human had fought for her when her own kind had turned against her, and she did not know how to deal with that. Ethan looked up, sensing her stare. Something on your mind, princess. Zyra scowled. I told you not to call me that. He smirked. You didn't exactly give me a replacement name. She crossed her arms. I am no longer a princess. I have no title. Ethan's gaze softened. That doesn't mean you don't have a purpose. Zyra exhaled sharply and turned back to the controls. She hated how easily his words unsettled her. She had spent her life believing humans were monsters. Now one had saved her, trusted her, fought for her, and that was more dangerous than any battle. The burden of freedom. Hours passed. Zyra remained at the controls, monitoring the ship's systems. Ethan had gone to the lower deck, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Her fingers tightened on the console. For the first time in her life, she was free. No empire to command her, no father's orders, no duty to uphold. But freedom was not what she had imagined. It was terrifying. What was she supposed to do now? Where did she belong? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of Ethan's footsteps. He dropped into the seat next to her, tossing a ration bar onto the console. Eat, he said simply. Zyra glanced at it, then back at him. You always insist on feeding me. Ethan shrugged. You're no good to me if you pass out from starvation. She narrowed her eyes. And what exactly am I to you? Ethan didn't answer right away. He leaned back, studying her, as if considering his words carefully. Finally, he said, a survivor. Zyra frowned. That is not an answer. Ethan smirked. Sure it is. You made it out of that hell alive. You made choices most people wouldn't. You're here, standing on your own, making your own path. That makes you a survivor." Zaira looked away, staring at the endless stretch of stars. His words unsettled her, not because they were false, but because they felt true. She had survived. But what came next? More than a soldier. As the hours passed, Ethan ran maintenance on the ship, while Zaira assisted with navigation. They worked in silence, an unspoken truce between them. Eventually, Ethan leaned back against the console, arms crossed. "So, Princess, what's the plan?" Zaira frowned. "You keep asking me that, as if I have the answer." "You always have the answer. You just don't want to say it out loud." She shot him a glare. "Do all humans talk this much?" Ethan grinned. "Only the charming ones." Zaira exhaled sharply. "I am no longer part of the Kraverian Empire. That means I no longer have resources, allies, or a home." Ethan nodded. "All right. But that also means you have something better." She narrowed her eyes. "And what is that?" He leaned forward. "A choice." Zaira stiffened. He was right. She had never been given a choice before. Her entire life had been dictated by duty, by expectations, by her father's will. Now she could choose her own path. The question was, what did she want? The memory of touch. The conversation hung heavy between them. Zaira suddenly felt exhausted. The weight of everything. The betrayal, the escape, the uncertainty of the future. It crashed down on her all at once. She closed her eyes, rubbing her temples. A gentle hand touched her wrist. Her eyes snapped open, her entire body tensing. Ethan had reached out, his fingers brushing against her skin. The contact was warm, steady, reassuring. "I know this is a lot," he said, voice quieter now. "You don't have to figure everything out tonight." Zaira's pulse hammered in her throat. Kraverians did not touch lightly. Touch was a display of dominance, power, control. It was used to assert authority, not to comfort. But Ethan's touch was none of those things. It was different. It did not demand anything. It did not take. It simply was. And that made it far more dangerous than any weapon. She yanked her arm away, standing quickly. "I need rest." Ethan studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Get some sleep. I'll keep watch." Zaira turned and walked away fast, her heart racing for reasons she didn't understand. She had expected pain from humans, torture, deception. But instead, Ethan had given her kindness, and that was far more difficult to resist. The war in her heart. Zaira lay on the small cot in the ship's quarters, staring at the ceiling. Sleep did not come easily. Her mind kept replaying everything. The betrayal of her people, the battle, Ethan's touch. Her body had been trained for war. She knew how to fight, how to survive, how to kill. But she did not know how to handle gentleness. Ethan Carter was an enemy she had never been trained for. And that terrified her more than anything. Because in all the battles she had fought, in all the wars she had won, this was the first time she didn't know if she wanted to win. She had turned against her people. Now the real question was, would she turn toward him? The future they choose. The stolen Kraverian warship drifted in the vast silence of deep space, its engines idling, cloaked from prying sensors. Inside, Princess Zaira sat alone in the cockpit, staring at the swirling galaxy outside the viewport. Everything had changed. Her people had betrayed her. Her father had sentenced her to death. And yet here she was, alive, on the run, sitting on a human ship beside the very enemy she had been raised to hate. A human who had saved her. A human who refused to treat her like an enemy. Her fingers drummed against the console as her thoughts tangled in ways they never had before. Zaira Zithrak had always been a warrior. She knew how to fight, how to conquer, how to win. But this war raging inside her, this battle between loyalty and truth, between hatred and something far more dangerous, she didn't know how to fight this. She didn't know if she wanted to. A dangerous proposition. A pair of heavy boots echoed against the ship's metal floor. She didn't need to turn to know it was Commander Ethan Carter. He always moved like that, relaxed, confident, like the universe itself didn't scare him. She invited that. "Can't sleep?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. Zara exhaled sharply. "Sleep is a weakness." Ethan smirked. "That's a terrible philosophy. Sleep keeps you alive." Zara turned to glare at him. "Krygarian warriors do not rely on rest. We rely on strength." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? How's that working out for you?" She scowled, but he wasn't wrong. He took a step closer, his arms crossed. "You've been staring at that screen for hours. You planning something?" Zara hesitated. She was planning something. For the past few hours, she had been digging into the ship's hacked database, gathering intelligence from Krygarian networks. And what she had found was worse than she had imagined. She pulled up the holographic display, spinning it toward Ethan. "Look," she said. He studied the projection. His smirk faded into a serious frown. "Is this what I think it is?" Zara nodded. "The Krygarian Empire is mobilizing their entire fleet. A full-scale invasion." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Where?" Zara inhaled sharply. "They're targeting Earth. The final betrayal." Ethan straightened, his posture tense. "They're going after my home." Zara nodded. "Not just a raid. This is total annihilation. They do not intend to conquer. They intend to wipe humanity out completely." Ethan ran a hand down his face. "And you're just telling me this now?" "I only just found out," Zara said. "This information is restricted, even to high-ranking officials. My father kept it secret." Ethan exhaled sharply. Damn it. For the first time since she had met him, Ethan looked shaken. Not in fear, not in weakness, but in rage. Zara had spent her life believing humans were violent, reckless creatures. But this was different. This was the quiet fury of a man who refused to let his people die. "What do we do?" Ethan finally asked. Zara hesitated. "We." Not what do you do? Not what does humanity do? We. Somehow, she had become a part of this fight. Somehow, he saw her as an ally. She straightened her shoulders. "I know how to stop them." Ethan's eyes locked onto hers. "Then let's do it." The mission: destroy the Krygarian Command Corps. Fighter tapped the console, enlarging the map of Krygarian High Command. This is the Central Command Corps, located on the capital ship Zephyrian. It controls fleet movements, relays battle strategies, and authorizes planetary strikes. Ethan nodded. "So if we take it out?" Zara smirked. "The entire invasion collapses." Ethan exhaled, then grinned. "I love a good sabotage mission." Zara gave him a sideways glance. "You are too eager for death." Ethan chuckled. "Nah, I just like screwing over tyrants." For the first time, she smiled. Just a little. The heist of a lifetime. Stealing the Krygarian High Command access code was nearly impossible. Nearly. Zara and Ethan infiltrated a Krygarian outpost, disguised in stolen armor. Moving side by side, their movements were perfectly in sync. One covering the other, moving as one. Zara had never fought alongside anyone like this before. Humans and Krygarians did not fight together. And yet here they were. At one point, Ethan grabbed her wrist, pulling her back as a patrol passed. She tensed at the contact, but his touch was steady, not demanding. And for once, she did not pull away. After a tense mission, they got the codes. Now they just had to use them. Breaking the chains of the Empire. The stolen warship approached Zephyrian, the heart of the Krygarian fleet. Zara's fingers tightened on the controls. This was it. Her final betrayal. Her final chance to change everything. Ethan sat beside her, his presence strong, steady. No orders, no commands, just trust. She exhaled slowly. "Are you ready, human?" Ethan smirked. I was born ready, princess. She scowled. Do not call me. He winked. I know. She exhaled sharply. This man was insufferable. And yet, she would not want anyone else beside her for this mission. The ship's alarm blared. The fleet had detected them. Zyra's eyes locked onto Ethan's. No turning back now. Let's finish this. The future they choose. The ship dived into battle, dodging enemy fire as they made their final approach. Zyra did not know if she would survive. But she knew this. For the first time in her life, she was fighting for something real. For truth. For freedom. And maybe, just maybe, for the human who had shown her there was another way. As the final battle began, one thing was certain. She had expected torture from humans. Instead, one had given her a reason to fight. And that changed everything.